One, two. Hello, Bedside. Oh, it's great to be here. 10 years. It's good to see friendly faces again and keep this community going. Today, I'm going to talk a bit about the making of this device that you probably have on your neck and how it all started. Essentially, it was a simple conversation. Morrison asked me if I want to do it, and I said, yes, of course. Maybe I responded too quickly because it turned out to be a carousel of emotions throughout all this process, throughout the months. So first I was happy, then it started to be a challenge, then I solved it, and then I stabbed myself in the eye several times. And despair hit me, and eventually we had something that was close enough to our initial conversation. So, some of you might know this project flow that I sometimes present when I'm talking about hardware projects. It's my flow. It doesn't have to be, it's not a universal truth, but essentially it all starts with some kind of motivation and the definition of the process of the project that you want to build. In this case, it was a hardware badge. Then there's some research involved, how it's going to come together, and the design of the PCB. And then there's the easy part, which is sourcing the parts. Where are you going to buy them? Where is it going to be made? Full disclosure, China, because of course. Then you test, then you loop. The loop process might begin again in motivation because you just threw everything out the window, or you just loop some parts of the process. And some of these steps might not occur in this order. Motivation was obvious. I like to be involved in hardware projects. I like to be involved in B-sides, of course. I wanted to do something cool since last year the badge didn't have any blinking lights. So what I've started to think about is how can we take advantage of having a badge that actually allows to connect people. And what I feel that most of us in conversations feel is that since COVID disappeared, people are starting to get together, and they really want to be together again and talk about security. And the conferences that I go are always full and sold out, and this year apparently it sold out like a couple of months ago already. And I wanted to contribute for people to connect and to be together. And I had some ideas on how to design a badge that will contribute to that exchange of connections between different folks. So, and in the end, everybody will be happy and making new contacts and throwing up rainbows. But before we go further, let me just introduce you a couple of folks. One of this is Augustus de Morgan. So in 1866, he said something like, whatever can happen will happen. This sounds very familiar with something that Neville Maskelyne said, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Now, you might know this as Murphy's laws. It's not completely clear that this was said by Murphy, and I always think this was the original quote was from Murphy, but apparently not. But then there's the Finagle's corollary. Anything that can go wrong will, and at the worst possible moment. So please keep this in mind throughout this presentation. So anyway, so the motivation was done. Definition was done, so it's time to do some research. I had some ideas, like I said, so it's going to, there's a PCB problem is kind of solved. I work with JLC PCB for my, hobby projects. I know they work well, they ship fairly fast, and they have decent quality on their production line, so that problem was solved. I just had to design the actual PCB. I know that the badge this time will have some kind of brains, right? And the brains was the ESP32S2. I chose the S2 because it had low power consumption. It's, ESP32, it's quite powerful. You have Wi-Fi, you have something cool to, bring with you home and just play around if you wanted. there had to be some kind of user interface, some screens, some buttons, something that you could play around while you were at the conference, of course, and a power source. I want this to be, independent of being connected to somewhere, so I need to figure out what power source would I use. In this case, it's the blue supercap thing that you have going on that sometimes it's up a bit. But I have all these things figured out. So I went into the design phase, and I will show you some of the designs that I was able to do. So my first step, my very first prototype, was the one upper on the up. So one of the cool things about the ESP32S2, which someone was asking me, is why there's no chipset that is used to communicate via USB. It's because the ESP32 does not need it. You can directly connect it to USB. That's pretty cool. You just need to connect, some wires, and it will just magically work. So after playing around with this very basic example, I went to the second prototype, which was me testing Pagon. Pgon is a library that does all sorts of different communication and protocol types. You can use it to communicate via LED, for example, via sound, via radio. It's pretty cool. If you Google it, go online, it does lots of different stuff on very low power microcontrollers if you want. But if you look at these wires here, they are there for a reason. And the reason was this first prototype that I manufactured the PCB. I soldered it myself, but when I ordered the board, I switched the data plus and data minus from the USB. So this is one mistake. Every time I make a mistake like this, I have to reorder another board. I have to wait like a couple of weeks for them to come, and I have to test all things all over again. So I'm going to talk a lot about things that I did wrong. One of my friends that some of you know, called Erez Yalon, says that in these types of conferences we talk about our wins, but we don't talk enough about the things that we screw up. But it's by screwing up that you learn. Otherwise, you won't learn from your mistakes, right? So I didn't, because this mistake, I already had this exact mistake in a previous project that I have, and I repeated it. So third time it's the charm. I redesigned the actual layout of the USB component in my favorite EDA. I dropped the actual USB connector because if I can make it a bit cheaper, and I did on every part that I use, just reduce parts that you don't need, so it gets cheaper and cheaper, the end device. And if you notice here on the bottom, the sizes are different. The reason these sizes are different, it's because the VCC and ground lines are on the sides, and when they get inserted in your device, they receive power first before the data lines are activated, right? And you might notice that is not what's happening here. They are all at the same level, which means I just connected it upside down. So I screwed up again. So I had to, for my testing, I have to figure out how I could test the final version of the device kind of with the lines switch. But so far, so good. Things were going great. I was able to test the firmware. I'm not going to talk a lot about the firmware because we don't have time, and I realize I'm the last talk between you guys and Beersides Lisbon, so I will try to be fast. So sourcing the parts. That's easy, sourcing and fabrication. I sourced the parts that I needed. This is my first complete prototype that was actually ordered and assembled by JLC PCB in China. As you might find some differences between your device and this one. This one has a pretty cool screen, all the power and resistors and everything that's needed to power this OLED screen. So it should be like integrated in one device. For some reason, I thought it was a good idea to left these ones, which was the OLED module that you can see on your device, and it turns out to be a good decision, and I'll show you why a bit later. So this was the first prototype. So awesome. I had the parts, I have the manufacturers of the parts, I figure out the fabrication process, I just have to produce 600 and send them back to me. So this is where things started to go really, really bad. So first of all, the buttons that I was testing, they were out. So the manufacturer does not make them anymore, so I had to choose different buttons that were size compatible. Well, that's doable. So one problem solved. It took me 1 week, emails back and forth with the guys, but we figured that out. Second problem, the OLED screens were just enough for 300 devices, and they will take 45 days to be resupplied. This was back in September. We didn't have 45 days to have, to wait for this OLED, shiny screens. So the decision was made, okay, in the original prototype that I was working on, I was working with a module. So we, order modules. There was not exactly the same module, but we could find 600 modules. So it's a risk because when you're using something that you haven't tested before, but maybe you can get away, it has the same pinout, has the same specifications, should work, but you never know. So far, so good. Problem solved. A couple of more weeks wasted in emails back and forth. Finally, they just said that it's going to be impossible to actually provide 600 ESP32S2. And then I got really sad. There was no time to redesign the board or to use another microcontroller and order and test it and order 600 again and spend all those guys' money on something that's essentially a brick, and I didn't want to do that. Things were stalled, a lot of emails exchanged. There's this guy making pressure to the manufacturers to deliver sooner. That was not possible. Apparently, ESP32S3, which is the newest S-series chips for Expressive, was pin-for-pin compatible, and that's something that we found. Maybe if we order them and just order the 600, pin-for-pin compatible should mean that should work. We had to risk it, and there was absolutely no guarantees that this will work at all. So eventually, we just decided to, we have to, take the step and order the manufacturer process to start. It should work, but there's no guarantees. Meanwhile, I order 1 or 2 so I can test it by myself, but they will also take a lot of time. So this was kind of, a step into the unknown. So anyway, this guy is a happy hero, is Henry Deng. I don't have time to explain all the different emails that we had to exchange between, the time period of around 2 months. I'm sure he has nightmares about the email exchange as much as I do, but he was a really, really champion for our cause inside GLC PCB. So this is how it ended. The 5th generation of prototypes for the badge arrived. That's me with 2 weeks ago in my working clothes. Receiving 32 kilos of badges and taking a quick photo before running out to my computer and put it and try to flash it and see if the OLED screen would turn on, if everything would work. It didn't at first compile because pin-for-pin compatible doesn't mean that the libraries are compatible and you can just run the same code. I faced some issues. In the end, we were able to make it work. There are some errors and mistakes that I made. First of all of you guys have probably noticed that this hits a lot when charging. It does so because I just connected the supercap straight to the voltage controller, so it just sucks up all the juice that it can. So one of the advantages, it charges really fast, but it gets really, really hot. This device sadly will discharge until it's dead, and that's why you are seeing my kid taking them out of boxes and using every single device that we had with a USB port, charging all the 600 so they don't get to 0.0 before the supercap dies. It turns out not all supercaps can be discharged up to 0. I did not know that information before choosing the supercaps, and it's not obvious on the spreadsheet. But if you have an electronic engineering background, you probably know this. But or capacitors in general should be able to be fully discharged and charged. Apparently, no. So your device will die unless you continue to charge it. And finally, because of my OCD, the 2 lateral buttons that you see to the sides of the screens are actually just one button. How that happened? Well, when I was redesigning the board in EDA, I figured out that one button was connected to IO0 and the other to IO34 or something, and that made no sense, so I redesigned it so one button is IO0, the other button is IO1, makes sense. But I copy-pasted the lines, so it's not obvious when you look at it, but if you go and examine the lines, the supply lines, they are in the same net. The net is the same name. What this means is when it gets auto-routed and translated into copper paths, eventually they will connect at some point. So it's just one button. The advantage is if one of the buttons, gets damaged, you have the other one, so you can use. So. Anyway, in the end, what you got in your NAC is a ESP32S3. It has 4 megabytes. You have Bluetooth, low energy. You have Wi-Fi. There's USB. There's also word port that you can see broken out on the side of the ESP. The 2 pins, you can use it for debugging. There's also a lot of you can see it, a lot of IOs that are broken out if you want to use it in a different project. There's a reset button, one button and one extra button. There's a 128 per 32 pixel OLED. There's one ultra-bright LED. That ultra-bright LED was designed last minute just in case the OLED screen was not working. At least we know for sure that we could blink at least one LED, so you guys won't be too sad. So there was a LED blinking. Anyway, there's one touch interface on the pad wire 2. And yeah. The firmware stuff, I think this has to be like another talk. There's a lot of tricks to make this work, to make it consume less power, to be able for the timings, to be able to work for the page-on actually library transmits the information. Your body actually acts as a wire, so if you hold two of the badges together, the information flows through your body and into the other badge. So I found that this pretty cool. Anyway, that's for another talk. And maybe Bruno can talk a bit about our backhand and how we come to design such an awesome backhand.
So after all this, I did the backend. So it was first the easy part and the one that I didn't do much work because I used ChatGPT for everything you see on the front office. So the scoreboard was just asking ChatGPT to do stuff in HTML and JavaScript. So it's like 99.9%, including the small icons that you see there, with the exception of the Rickroll, which was Pedro's idea. And the backend is like Python and more ChatGPT to do the things work. It's like 4 endpoints of an API and not much more. So I tried to do as little as possible and make sure that this worked. It seems to be working, sort of, and we'll see tomorrow what happens. So.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up, I managed to get my primary objective. Is I'm still married. This was a huge challenge for me and my family at home. And the secondary objective, you have a badge that blinks. Hopefully you can meet new people because of it, and you can take it home and fill with it. I just want to thank I want to to thank Bruno, and I want to thank HD here, and besides Lisbon for putting this challenge in front of me. It was really, really fun to do it. I want to thank BitSide for supporting the work that I did and supporting the badge, of course. To all the guys at the Flash party, you know who you are. Flashing 600 badges is not easy at all. There was some help involved, and some of them I can see your faces here. And of course, I want to thank my daughter, and I want to really, really thank my beautiful wife, Tanya. She's not here. I hope she was, but without her support and insisting us to charge all the badges at home and stuff like that, and all the hours that she didn't get to see me, this was not going to be possible at all. Thank you.
Please don't leave yet. We are going to, hopefully soon, have a birthday cake. If anyone comes in with it, like now, it's a good surprise.
I don't have internet. Typical.
If you have any questions, we have a few minutes before beer.
Sim, Jorge.
Anyone? No? Great. I don't know, maybe tell some jokes, something?
Any questions?
There's a question there.
Raise your hand.
In the middle.
So, is it true that there is a function called the soulmate one? And if so, how does that work?
Yeah. So every single badge has one soulmate, and just one. So every one of you has a soulmate that will give you a lot of points if you find who's your soulmate. It's random. We don't know who the soulmate of the other person is. So that's one of the instances. So you get a lot of points. But you also have a lot of points if you go to sponsors. The sponsors badges have different points. So you can nag them for connections.
Yeah, I'll just give a heads up because there was a question previously. Because on the scoreboard, that's actually, at the time I saw, there were 3 people with soulmates, which is a heart. 2 of them was obviously Pedro and Luis. They won't count for the for the prizes, okay, don't worry. It was to test. And there's one more. We have no idea who it is. And someone is saying, but how can it just be one soulmate? Well, it's like in life, sometimes one soulmate recognizes the other and the other doesn't. So if when you cross the badge, it's real. And when you cross the badges, and if you try it, sometimes it happens, one actually counts and the other doesn't. So that's probably what happened. We have no idea. We don't know whoever has the badges. The only way, and tomorrow it's what we'll do. If your ID comes up on screen, you'll have to show your badge. That's the only way we can actually know it's you. So that's probably the reason why. So keep trying to find your soulmate. Who knows? More questions?
We have here.
What's the prize for in the end?
We have a lot of prizes, real nice stuff. So I don't know. We have books. We have hoodies from BSL2023, which are exclusive to winners tomorrow. We have stuff. But if you're doing for the prizes,
No,
it's
just
for the fun.
And the URL, it's dashboard, not board.
Yeah, it's dashboard. You can use badge.besides-lisbon.org or dashboard.besides-lisbon.org.
Any more question?
It's slow because it uses a modem.
Anyone? No, I think we don't have.
Okay, so birthday time. Thank you. Pedro.
Sorry,
No,
we
that's
have
fine.
one.
Yeah.
Last one.
How cheap did you make it?
As much as I could. Yeah.
At the valid answer.
Okay, let's try another prompt.
More expensive than your ticket. And it's not a joke, it's real.
Okay.
So just a final tip, as you noted, the USB might not be just for charging, just for you, so you know.
Use at your own risk. Let's get the cake on stage, guys. Where's George? People want to have beers and cake and food.
No, you'll say that.
Thank you. Thank you for staying for more 5 minutes. Okay, so can we have the B-Sides Lisbon team on stage, please? We have a surprise for everyone. So I remember that someone was talking about surprises, so this is one of them. Not the team, of course, but there you are. I was looking for you too. Yeah, now we can show you the surprise. And as you know, this is the 10th anniversary. We had some ups and downs. There was, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a pandemic at some point. But as you can see, this is a true team. We stood together and we are back.
We get someone else on stage. Come on. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
Ah, of course. Oof. Oh my God. Really? You may know this person, this artist, from our t-shirts and from the posters that we have upstairs. So, without further ado, please give it up for the team of B-Sides Lisbon and 10 years. So, as some of you may know, Bruno and Tiago were the ones that started this journey, and I think it's more than fair if you guys cut the cake.
It's a bit awkward.
It's so cute. And we have more cake outside. So thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you outside. Also, we have beer, we have lots of food. Please take care of it, and we also have cake. And we hope to see you tomorrow as well.